Have you ever trusted someone so deeply, only to find out they were living a lie? For 10 years, I believed my life was perfect, until one message shattered everything. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's a story about survival, strength, and finding love again when the odds are stacked against you. It all started with a feeling I couldn't shake, a whisper in the back of my mind telling me something was wrong. Daniel, my husband, had been distant lately. His once carefree laughter was replaced by clipped responses, and his phone never left his hand. I tried to push away the doubts. "You're imagining things, Anna," I told myself. "He's just stressed from work." But the cracks were too big to ignore. One night, as he left the room, his phone buzzed. A notification flashed briefly on the screen. I wouldn't have noticed it if it weren't for the name, Clara. The message read, "I can't stop thinking about last night. When can we see each other again?" My world stopped. I sat frozen, staring at the message, hoping it would disappear or rewrite itself into something innocent. But it didn't. My hands trembled as I picked up his phone. His passcode, a combination of Lucas's birthday and our anniversary, unlocked it instantly. The chat thread unfolded like a horror story. Dozens of messages filled with longing, secrets, and deceit. Clara wasn't just anyone. She was a co-worker Daniel had casually mentioned at dinner once or twice. The name now felt like poison. The next morning, I woke up before him. My stomach churned as I brewed coffee and sat at the kitchen table. The phone, with all its damning evidence, sat in front of me. When Daniel walked in, flashing his usual charming smile, my blood boiled. "Morning, Anna," he said, kissing my cheek. "Big day at work today. I'll probably be late tonight." I forced a smile, bile rising in my throat. "Late again? Must be some big project." He didn't catch the edge in my voice. "Yeah, the client's been really demanding lately." I pushed the phone toward him. "Is Clara one of those demanding clients?" His face went pale, his coffee mug trembling in his hands. "What are you talking about?" "Don't lie to me, Daniel," I said, my voice cold and steady. "I saw the messages." For a moment, he looked like he might deny it. Then his shoulders sagged. "Anna, I can explain." "Don't," I cut him off, my voice rising. "Just tell me how long this has been going on." 3 months, he admitted, avoiding my gaze. My heart clenched. 3 months of lies, of sneaking around, of throwing away everything we built together for her. That night, I made a decision. I packed my bags, ignoring his desperate pleas and empty promises. Lucas, my 8-year-old son, was asleep in his room, blissfully unaware of the storm tearing through our lives. I promised myself that I'd protect him from this mess, no matter what. The next day, I moved into a small apartment, taking Lucas with me. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Life in the new apartment was far from perfect, but it was peaceful. Lucas quickly adapted to the smaller space, finding joy in little things like decorating his room with glow-in-the-dark stars. For me, it was a mix of emotions. There were nights when the silence felt unbearable, memories of Daniel and the life we'd built together creeping in like shadows. But every morning, Lucas's laughter reminded me of why I had made this choice. One day, as I unpacked a box of kitchenware, Lucas came into the room holding a photo of the 3 of us. "Do you think Dad will visit us here?" he asked, his voice filled with hope. I froze for a moment before kneeling down to his level. "Lucas, your dad loves you," I said carefully. "But sometimes grown-ups need time to figure things out. For now, it's just you and me, okay?" He nodded slowly, his young mind grappling with an answer that felt far too big for him. "Okay, Mom, as long as we're together." His words filled me with a bittersweet resolve. I couldn't change the past, but I could give Lucas a future filled with love and stability. In the weeks that followed, I focused on creating a routine for us. Lucas started school nearby, and I picked up a part-time job at a local bookstore. The days were busy but fulfilling. It was at that bookstore where I first met Ethan. He wasn't the kind of man who demanded attention when he walked into a room. Instead, there was a quiet warmth about him, a presence that was both comforting and intriguing. One afternoon, as I restocked a shelf of children's books, he approached me with a curious smile. "Excuse me," he said, holding up a book with a vibrant cover. "Do you think a 7-year-old would like this one?" I glanced at the title, then at him. "Is it for your child?" I asked. He nodded. "My nephew. He's obsessed with dinosaurs." I couldn't help but smile. "Then this is perfect. It's got everything. Facts, fun illustrations, and even a pop-up T-Rex." Ethan chuckled. "Sounds like a winner. Thanks for the recommendation." It was a brief exchange, but something about it stayed with me, a glimmer of light in the midst of my storm. Just as life began to settle into a rhythm, Daniel resurfaced. It started with an email, simple and unassuming. "Anna, I've been thinking about Lucas a lot. I want to talk about arranging a visit. Please let me know when you're available. Daniel." The sight of his name in my inbox sent a chill down my spine. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours, torn between anger and uncertainty. When I finally responded, my message was short and to the point. "Daniel, Lucas is adjusting to his new life. If you want to visit, we need to set clear boundaries. This is about him, not us." The first visit took place at a nearby park. I brought Lucas, and Daniel arrived, looking both anxious and eager. "Hi, buddy," he said, crouching down to Lucas's level. Lucas hesitated before stepping forward. "Hi, Dad." The interaction was polite but strained. Daniel tried to engage Lucas with stories and questions, but it was clear that the connection they once had was fraying. From a distance, I watched the two of them, my heart aching for Lucas. Ethan's words echoed in my mind. Lucas needs stability. Protect that at all costs. As the visit ended, Daniel approached me. "Thank you for letting me see him," he said. I nodded curtly. "He's your son. But if you're serious about being in his life, you need to show up consistently. No more disappearing acts." Daniel nodded, a flicker of guilt in his eyes. Amidst the tension with Daniel, my interactions with Ethan became more frequent. He started showing up at the bookstore regularly, always with a kind word or a question about Lucas. One day, he surprised me by offering to help Lucas with a school project. "He's building a model volcano?" Ethan asked, his face lighting up. "I used to love doing that as a kid. Mind if I lend a hand?" Lucas, ever eager for new friends, welcomed Ethan's help with open arms. Over the course of an afternoon, the three of us worked together, laughter filling the room as Lucas accidentally spilled vinegar and baking soda everywhere. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of normalcy, a glimpse of what life could be like if I allowed myself to heal and move forward. Over the next few months, Ethan became a steady presence in our lives. He wasn't intrusive, nor did he try to replace Daniel. Instead, he quietly filled in the gaps, becoming a source of stability that Lucas and I desperately needed. One evening after dinner, Lucas sat at the table working on his homework. Ethan glanced over his shoulder and smiled. "Math, huh? Need a hand?" Lucas beamed. "Yeah. Fractions are so confusing." As they worked together, I watched from the kitchen, my heart swelling with gratitude. Ethan didn't just care about Lucas. He genuinely invested time and effort into being there for him. Later that night, as I walked Ethan to the door, I found myself saying something I hadn't planned. "Thank you," I said softly. He looked at me, surprised. "For what?" "For everything. For helping Lucas. For being here." His gaze softened, and for a moment I saw something unspoken in his eyes. "You don't have to thank me, Anna. I'm here because I want to be." Just as life began to feel steady, Daniel dropped a bombshell. One evening, my phone buzzed with an unexpected call. Seeing his name on the screen sent a wave of unease through me, but I answered. "Anna," Daniel began, his voice hesitant. "There's something I need to say." I braced myself. What is it, Daniel? It's about Lucas, he blurted out. I've been doing some thinking, and I'm not sure he's mine. The room seemed to tilt. What are you talking about? I demanded. He hesitated, then continued. It's just, the timeline doesn't add up. I think we need to do a paternity test. Rage surged through me. After everything you've done, now you're questioning Lucas's paternity? He's your son, Daniel. Don't you dare try to make excuses for your failures as a father. But his accusation planted a seed of doubt that I couldn't ignore. Against my better judgment, I scheduled a DNA test. The wait was agonizing, each day dragging as my mind spiraled through worst-case scenarios. When the envelope finally arrived, my hands trembled as I opened it. My eyes scanned the document until I saw the words that made my heart soar. 99.9% probability of biological relationship. Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. Lucas was Daniel's son, as I had always known. That evening, I called Daniel. The results are in, I said curtly. Lucas is your son. Don't ever question that again. There was a long pause before he finally responded. I'm sorry, Anna. I don't know what I was thinking. It's too late for apologies, I replied, my voice cold. Focus on being a better father to Lucas. That's all that matters now. Later that night, Ethan noticed the tension in my posture as we sat together on the couch. What's on your mind? He asked gently. I hesitated, then decided to tell him everything. Daniel's accusation, the test, and the results. When I finished, Ethan shook his head, a mixture of frustration and sympathy in his eyes. That man doesn't deserve you, he said firmly. Or Lucas. But you've handled this with so much grace, Anna. More than most people could. His words brought tears to my eyes. I'm just trying to do what's best for Lucas. And you're doing an amazing job, Ethan said, reaching for my hand. He's lucky to have you. And so am I. The warmth in his voice and the sincerity in his eyes made my heart flutter in a way I hadn't felt in years. As the weeks turned into months, my bond with Ethan deepened. He wasn't just a friend or a support system anymore. He was becoming something more, someone I could see a future with. One sunny afternoon, Ethan invited Lucas and me to a picnic by the lake. The day was filled with laughter, games, and quiet moments that felt like they belonged in a dream. As the sun began to set, Ethan turned to me, his expression serious. Anna, he began, I know we've been taking things slow, but I need you to know something. I care about you, about Lucas, and I want to build a life with you. His confession caught me off guard, but as I looked into his eyes, I knew he meant every word. I care about you too, I said softly, more than I can put into words. Ethan smiled, his relief evident. Then let's take this one step at a time, together. The days after Ethan's confession felt like stepping into uncharted territory. I wasn't sure if I was ready to open my heart again, but something about him felt safe, like a harbor after a storm. Lucas adored him, and Ethan had an uncanny way of making the mundane moments in life feel extraordinary. One evening, as we sat together after dinner, Lucas came running into the living room, clutching a crumpled piece of paper. Mom, Ethan, look what I made. He unfolded the paper to reveal a brightly colored drawing of the three of us standing under a rainbow. In his childlike scrawl, he had written, "My family." My heart clenched, and I exchanged a glance with Ethan. His eyes softened, and he leaned down to Lucas's level. This is amazing, buddy. I'm honored to be part of your masterpiece. Lucas grinned, oblivious to the depth of the moment. But for me, it was a sign. Maybe it was okay to move forward. Maybe this was the start of something real. As our relationship grew, so did my sense of peace. Ethan didn't just fit into my life. He enhanced it. He reminded me what it felt like to laugh freely, to trust, and to dream again. But just as I began to imagine a future with him, Daniel reappeared, casting a shadow over our newfound happiness. It started with a legal notice in the mail. Daniel was challenging our custody arrangement. The documents were filled with claims about wanting to be more involved in Lucas's life, but I couldn't shake the feeling that his motives were less about Lucas and more about control. When I told Ethan, his jaw tightened. "He's just trying to stir up trouble," he said, his voice calm but firm. "He knows Lucas is happy here." "I know," I replied, my voice shaky. "But what if he convinces the court? What if Lucas gets caught in the middle of this?" Ethan pulled me into his arms. "We'll fight this, Anna. Together." The custody battle was grueling. Court hearings, endless paperwork, and Daniel's attempts to paint himself as the ideal father left me emotionally drained. But through it all, Ethan stood by my side, unwavering. His presence gave me the strength to keep going, even when I felt like giving up. One evening, after a particularly difficult day in court, Ethan found me sitting on the couch, staring at a photo of Lucas. He sat down beside me and took my hand. "You're an incredible mom, Anna. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. Lucas knows who's always been there for him." His words brought tears to my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered. "I don't know what I'd do without you." When the final ruling came, the judge decided to uphold the current custody arrangement. Relief flooded through me as the judge's words echoed in the courtroom. Daniel looked defeated, but I didn't care. Lucas's happiness and stability were all that mattered. With the custody battle behind us, life began to settle again. Lucas returned to his carefree self, and I started to breathe a little easier. Ethan and I grew closer, our bond strengthened by the challenges we had faced together. It wasn't long before he became more than just a partner. He became family. One crisp autumn evening, as the three of us sat around a fire pit in Ethan's backyard, Lucas turned to him with wide, curious eyes. "Ethan, do you think you'll always be with us?" Ethan glanced at me before answering. "If it's up to me, buddy, I'll be here as long as you and your mom want me around." Lucas nodded, seemingly satisfied with the answer. But for me, the moment was profound. Ethan wasn't just a temporary presence in our lives. He was someone I could see a future with. A few weeks later, Ethan invited us to a quiet dinner by the lake. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the water, he turned to me with a nervous smile. "Anna, there's something I've been meaning to ask you." Before I could respond, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath caught as he opened it to reveal a delicate ring. "You've been through so much, and you've come out stronger than anyone I know. You've taught me what it means to love selflessly, and I want to spend the rest of my life making you as happy as you make me. Will you marry me?" Tears welled in my eyes as I nodded. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." Ethan slipped the ring onto my finger, and Lucas cheered loudly, his excitement filling the air. It was a moment of pure joy, a turning point that marked the beginning of a new chapter in our lives. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind of preparations and anticipation. Ethan wanted something simple yet meaningful, and I couldn't agree more. We decided to hold the ceremony by the same lake where he had proposed. It was a place that already held so many beautiful memories for us. Lucas was ecstatic about his role in the wedding. He took his job as ring bearer very seriously, practicing his walk down the aisle in our tiny living room almost every evening. Seeing his excitement only made the occasion feel more special. The day of the wedding was perfect. The lake shimmered under the autumn sun, and the crisp air carried the soft scent of pine. Our closest friends and family gathered, their smiles warming the chilly afternoon. As Lucas walked me down the aisle, his chest puffed with pride, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for how far we had come. Ethan's vows were simple but heartfelt. "Anna, you've shown me what love truly means. You've taught me that family isn't just about blood, it's about commitment, kindness, and being there for one another. I promise to stand by you and Lucas, to love you both fiercely, and to build a life filled with laughter and love." My own vows came from the deepest part of my heart. Ethan, you came into my life when I needed light the most. You've been my partner, my anchor, and my friend. I vow to love you, to trust you, and to create a life together filled with hope and joy." As we exchanged rings and kissed, the world seemed to fade away, leaving only the promise of our future together. Lucas clapped enthusiastically, and his laughter rang out, a reminder of all the happiness yet to come. The reception was small but lively, held under twinkling string lights that danced in the evening breeze. Lucas led the charge on the dance floor, pulling Ethan and me into his joyful chaos. For the first time in years, I felt whole, as if every broken piece of my heart had finally found its place. Later that night, as Ethan and I stood by the lake, watching the moonlight ripple across the water, he turned to me with a soft smile. "There's one more thing I've been meaning to tell you." "What is it?" I asked, tilting my head in curiosity. He took my hands in his. "I want us to grow our family. I want us to have a baby, if that's something you want too." The thought filled me with both excitement and nerves. But as I looked into his eyes, I knew my answer. "I'd love that," I whispered. A few months later, we discovered I was pregnant. Sharing the news with Lucas was one of the most heartwarming moments of my life. His face lit up with excitement, and he immediately declared himself the baby's protector. "Don't worry, Mom," he said seriously. "I'll make sure they're safe. I'll teach them everything I know." As the months passed, our little family began preparing for the arrival of our newest member. Ethan painted the nursery, carefully selecting soft colors that felt warm and inviting. Lucas, ever the enthusiastic big brother, helped pick out baby clothes and stuffed animals. The day finally came on a bright spring morning. Ethan held my hand through every moment, his steady presence grounding me as I brought our daughter into the world. When I saw her tiny face for the first time, I felt a love so profound it took my breath away. "She's perfect," Ethan whispered, tears glistening in his eyes. "Thank you, Anna. You've made me the happiest man alive." We named her Lily, after the delicate flowers that symbolized renewal and hope. Watching Ethan cradle her in his arms, with Lucas standing proudly by his side, I knew I had everything I had ever dreamed of. Life after Lily's arrival was a beautiful chaos. The house was filled with the sounds of her laughter, Lucas's chatter, and the quiet hum of our routines. Ethan and I found joy in the simple moments: family dinners, story time before bed, and lazy Sundays spent playing board games. But as always, life had its surprises. One evening, as I was sorting through the mail, I found an envelope with a familiar handwriting. It was from Daniel. My heart sank as I opened it, dreading what he might want now. "Anna, I know I've made a mess of things, but I want to try to be better for Lucas. I'm not asking for much, just the chance to see him more often. Please consider it. Daniel." I sighed, my mind swirling with emotions. Ethan noticed my expression and came over. "What is it?" he asked gently. "It's from Daniel," I replied, handing him the letter. "He wants to see Lucas more." Ethan read the letter carefully, his brow furrowing. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I don't want to disrupt Lucas's life, but maybe it's good for him to have a relationship with his dad, as long as Daniel's intentions are genuine." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "Let's talk to Lucas about it. This should be his decision too." That weekend, Ethan and I sat Lucas down to talk. He was playing with one of his model rockets, carefully assembling the small pieces with intense concentration. When I mentioned Daniel's letter, his hands paused midair. "He wants to see me more?" Lucas asked, his brow furrowing in thought. "Yes," I said gently, "but only if you're okay with it. This is your choice, Lucas. You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with." Lucas looked down at his rocket, twisting a piece absent-mindedly. "I don't know, Mom. It's been a long time since I've seen him. What if he leaves again?" His words hit me like a punch to the chest, but I kept my voice steady. If you want to give him a chance, we'll support you. And if he disappears again, you'll still have us. You're not alone in this. Lucas nodded slowly. Okay. I think I want to see him, but only a little at first. Just to see what he's like. I reached out and pulled him into a hug. That's a brave choice, sweetheart. We'll make sure it's on your terms. The first visit was arranged for a quiet afternoon at the park. Ethan and I stayed nearby, giving Lucas and Daniel the space they needed while keeping a close eye on things. Daniel arrived on time, a bouquet of flowers in one hand and a nervous smile on his face. Hi, buddy, he said softly, crouching down to Lucas's level. You've grown so much. Lucas hesitated, then offered a polite, hi. The conversation was slow at first, filled with awkward pauses and cautious exchanges. Daniel tried to engage Lucas by asking about school and his favorite hobbies. Lucas responded politely, but kept his answers short. It was clear he was still unsure about letting his guard down. From where we sat on a nearby bench, I watched them, my emotions a whirlwind of hope and apprehension. Ethan placed a reassuring hand on mine. He's doing great, he said. He's figuring it out in his own time. As the visit came to an end, Daniel knelt down in front of Lucas. I'd like to see you again, he said, his voice filled with emotion. If that's okay with you. Lucas looked at me, searching for reassurance. I nodded, and he turned back to Daniel. Maybe. We'll see. It wasn't a resounding yes, but it was a step forward. In the weeks that followed, Daniel kept his word, showing up for the scheduled visits and putting in effort to rebuild his relationship with Lucas. While I remained cautious, I couldn't deny that his presence had a positive impact on Lucas. My son seemed lighter, more at ease, as if a small piece of the puzzle had clicked into place. Ethan, as always, was my steady anchor. He never interfered but was always there to lend an ear or offer advice when I needed it. One evening, after a particularly good visit with Daniel, I found myself reflecting on how far we'd come. I think it's good for Lucas to have this connection, I said, as we sat together on the porch, watching the stars. But I'm still scared. What if Daniel disappears again? Ethan reached over and took my hand. If that happens, Lucas will be okay. He has you. He has us. And he knows he's loved. His words brought a sense of comfort I hadn't realized I needed. As time went on, life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Lucas continued to thrive in school, his love for science and exploration growing stronger with each passing day. Lily, now a curious toddler, filled the house with laughter and boundless energy. Ethan and I found joy in the chaos, savoring the quiet moments when they came. One evening, as we tucked Lily into bed, Lucas approached us with a shy smile. Mom, Ethan, I've been working on something and I want to show you. We followed him to the dining table where he had laid out a small rocket model he'd been building for weeks. It's for the science fair, he explained. I designed it to be more aerodynamic, and I'm testing how far it can go. Ethan examined the model, his eyes lighting up. This is incredible, Lucas. You've put so much thought into this. Lucas beamed at the praise. Do you think I'll win? I smiled, ruffling his hair. Win or not, you've already done an amazing job, but I think you have a pretty good shot. On the day of the science fair, Lucas's rocket flew farther than anyone else's, earning him first place. As he stood on the stage, holding his trophy and searching the crowd for us, my heart swelled with pride. When his eyes met mine, he waved enthusiastically, his smile wide and unguarded. As we celebrated that evening with pizza and ice cream, Lucas turned to Ethan. Thanks for helping me with the design. I couldn't have done it without you. Ethan chuckled. You did all the hard work, buddy. I just gave a few tips. Lucas grinned. You're the best. Life wasn't perfect. It never is. But it was full of love, growth, and moments that reminded me why I had fought so hard to rebuild our lives. I had found my family, my peace, and my future, and for the first time in years, I felt truly happy. The years seemed to fly by after Lucas's big win at the science fair. He entered middle school with a newfound confidence, immersing himself in science clubs and robotics competitions. His love for discovery was infectious, and it wasn't long before he started talking about wanting to become an aerospace engineer. Lily, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of energy and creativity. She spent her days drawing colorful masterpieces on every surface she could find: paper, walls, even Ethan's work desk once. Ethan took it in stride, laughing as he carefully wiped away her crayon doodles. "She's just expressing herself," he said with a wink. Ethan and I had fallen into a comfortable rhythm as partners and parents. Our days were a mix of school drop-offs, bedtime stories, and quiet evenings spent talking about our dreams for the future. But life, as it often does, had more surprises in store. The one crisp winter morning, a letter arrived in the mail. It was addressed to Lucas and bore the official seal of a national science camp. He tore it open with a mix of excitement and nerves, his eyes scanning the words quickly. "I got in!" he exclaimed, holding the letter up triumphantly. "They accepted me into the summer program." Ethan and I exchanged proud smiles. "That's amazing, Lucas," Ethan said, pulling him into a bear hug. "You earned this." Lucas beamed. "I'll get to work with real scientists and build rockets. This is the best day ever." As the summer approached, we helped Lucas prepare for his big adventure. On the day of his departure, we stood at the train station watching him board with his suitcase in hand. "Be good and call us every day," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I will, Mom," he promised, leaning out of the window. "I'll make you proud." "You already do," Ethan said, waving as the train pulled away. The house felt quieter without Lucas, but Lily quickly filled the void with her boundless energy. She was endlessly curious, always asking questions about everything from why the sky was blue to how butterflies learned to fly. Her wonder reminded me to slow down and appreciate the small moments. On one evening, as Ethan and I were tucking Lily into bed, she asked a question that caught us off guard. "Mommy, Daddy, do you think we can go to the stars one day?" Ethan chuckled, brushing her hair back. "That's a big trip, little one. But maybe your brother can take you when he's a famous scientist." Lily giggled, clapping her hands. "I'll ask him when he gets back." Later that night, as we sat on the porch watching the stars, Ethan turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "You know," he began, "we've spent so much time building a life for the kids. Maybe it's time we do something for ourselves." I raised an eyebrow. "What are you suggesting?" "A trip," he said, his eyes twinkling. "Just the two of us. Let's take some time to reconnect and explore the world together." The idea was both thrilling and daunting. "What about the kids?" "My parents would love to watch them for a couple of weeks," he said with a grin. "And Lucas is old enough to help out with Lily. Let's make it happen." A few weeks later, Ethan and I found ourselves strolling through the streets of Paris hand in hand. The trip was a dream come true, a chance to rediscover ourselves and the love that had carried us through so many challenges. One evening, as we sat at a small cafe overlooking the Seine, Ethan reached across the table and took my hand. "Anna, you've given me so much. This life, our family, it's more than I ever thought I'd have. Thank you." Tears welled in my eyes as I smiled at him. "And you've shown me what it means to love and be loved. I wouldn't trade this for anything." As the sun set behind us, casting a golden glow over the city, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. We had faced so much, but we had come out stronger, together. When we returned home, the kids greeted us with enthusiastic hugs and excited stories about their time with Ethan's parents. Lucas had started planning his next rocket design, and Lily proudly showed us a new painting she had made. Life returned to its beautiful chaos, but something about us felt renewed. As the years passed, Lucas continued to chase his dreams with unwavering determination. He was accepted into a prestigious university program for aerospace engineering, and his journey took him to places I could only dream of. Lily grew into a kind, creative young woman, her laughter still the heartbeat of our home. One summer evening, as we sat around the fire pit in the backyard, Lucas turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Mom," he said, "do you think everything happens for a reason?" I paused, considering his question. "I don't know if everything happens for a reason," I replied, "but I do know that every challenge we face shapes us into who we're meant to be." He nodded, a soft smile playing on his lips. "I think you're right." Ethan reached for my hand, his gaze filled with love. "To us," he said softly, raising his glass. "To us?" I echoed, looking around at my family, the people who had made every struggle worthwhile. In that moment, I knew we had built something unbreakable, something beautiful. The following years passed by in a blur of milestones and cherished moments. Lucas, now brimming with confidence, had embarked on a prestigious internship at a national space agency, cementing his passion for aerospace engineering. His determination and curiosity seemed to grow with every passing day. Lily, on the other hand, flourished in her artistic pursuits. The house was constantly filled with her colorful paintings and creative projects, transforming even the most mundane corners into galleries of her imagination. Ethan often joked that Lily was the family's resident artist, and we couldn't help but beam with pride at her relentless creativity. One evening, during a family dinner, Lucas shared news that left all of us buzzing with excitement. "Mom, Dad, Lily," he began, his voice filled with anticipation. "I've been invited to join a research team on a satellite project at the agency." The table erupted in cheers. "That's incredible, Lucas," Ethan said, pulling him into a congratulatory hug. "You've worked so hard for this." Lily clapped her hands enthusiastically. "Does this mean you're going to space?" Lucas chuckled, ruffling her hair. "Not yet, Squirt, but maybe someday." Watching my children, I felt my heart swell with pride and gratitude. "Lucas, you've always made me proud. This is just the beginning of an amazing journey. We're all behind you." While Lucas delved deeper into his studies and projects, Ethan and I began thinking about our own future. One quiet evening, as we sat on the porch under the stars, Ethan turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Anna," he said softly, "have you ever thought about writing your story?" I blinked, surprised by the question. "My story?" He nodded. "You've been through so much, and you've come out stronger every time. Your journey is powerful. I think it could inspire a lot of people." The idea lingered in my mind long after our conversation. The thought of sharing my story, the pain, the growth, the love, felt both terrifying and exhilarating. A few weeks later, I sat down at my desk and began writing. At first, the words came slowly, but as I let myself relive those moments, the emotions poured out onto the page. It wasn't just a story about betrayal, it was a story about survival, resilience, and the power of love to heal and transform. The manuscript was finished within a year, and soon after, published to unexpected acclaim. Readers wrote to me, sharing their own struggles and thanking me for giving them hope. It was a connection I hadn't anticipated, one that made every difficult moment I'd endured feel worthwhile. At the book's launch event, my family stood proudly by my side. Lucas, with his ever-supportive smile, cheered me on, while Lily excitedly proclaimed to anyone who would listen, "My mom's a famous author." Ethan, as always, was my steadfast rock. As the last reader of the day left with their signed copy, he leaned in and whispered, "You did it, Anna. You didn't just write a story. You've changed lives." The years that followed were filled with a sense of fulfillment and purpose. Lucas continued to achieve new heights in his career, while Lily grew into a compassionate and talented young woman, her artwork gaining recognition in the local community. One summer evening, as the family gathered around the fire pit in the backyard, Lucas turned to me with a thoughtful look. "Mom," he said, "do you think everything happens for a reason?" I paused, considering his question. "I'm not sure if everything happens for a reason," I replied, "but I do know that every challenge we face shapes who we are. And sometimes it leads us to something beautiful." Lucas nodded, a soft smile playing on his lips. "I think you're right." Ethan reached over and took my hand, his gaze steady and full of love. "To us," he said softly, raising his glass. "To us," I echoed, looking at the people who had become my entire world. In that moment, I knew that the life we had built was worth every struggle. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and it was beautiful. As the seasons changed, so did our lives. Lucas, now an adult, continued to thrive in his aerospace engineering career. His dedication and determination saw him involved in groundbreaking projects, and he often shared his excitement with us during family dinners. Each time he spoke about his work, his eyes lit up with passion, and I couldn't help but feel immense pride. Lily, on the other hand, was blossoming into a young woman with a creative spirit that seemed to know no bounds. Her art was no longer confined to our home. It had started to gain attention in the local community. One day, she came home with news that made us all beam with pride. "Mom! Dad!" she exclaimed, bursting through the door, a flyer clutched in her hand. "One of my paintings got selected for an exhibit at the city gallery." Ethan and I exchanged thrilled glances. "Lily, that's incredible," I said, pulling her into a hug. "Your hard work is paying off," Ethan added, his voice filled with pride. "We're so proud of you." The day of the exhibit was one to remember. As we stood in the gallery, surrounded by Lily's vibrant artwork, I couldn't help but marvel at how much my children had grown and achieved. Ethan wrapped an arm around my shoulders, his voice soft. "We've done well, haven't we?" I smiled, my heart full. "Yes, we have." One crisp autumn evening, as Ethan and I sat on the porch sipping tea, he reached for my hand. "Anna," he began, "I've been thinking a lot about the future. The kids are doing so well, and I think it's time we do something just for us." I raised an eyebrow, curious. "What do you have in mind?" He smiled. "Travel. Let's see the world together. We've spent so much time building this life. Now it's time to enjoy it." The idea was exhilarating. Over the next few months, we planned trips to places we had always dreamed of visiting. From the cobblestone streets of Rome to the breathtaking fjords of Norway, every destination became a chapter in our story. One evening, as we stood on a cliff overlooking the Irish coastline, the wind tousling our hair, Ethan turned to me with a tender smile. "This," he said, gesturing to the stunning view, "is exactly where I want to be. With you. Everywhere. Always." I leaned into him, the weight of the years melting away. And I can't imagine it any other way. When we returned home, refreshed and full of stories, life resumed its beautiful rhythm. Lucas came by one evening with an announcement that left us speechless. "Mom, Dad," he began, his voice steady but tinged with excitement. "I've been accepted into the Mars exploration program. It's a huge opportunity, and I'll be leaving Earth in a year." The room fell silent for a moment as we processed his words. Then Ethan broke into a proud grin, pulling Lucas into a tight hug. "That's incredible, son. I can't think of anyone better for the job." Tears pricked at my eyes, a mix of pride and the bittersweet realization that my son's dreams were taking him so far away. "Lucas, you've worked so hard for this. We're so proud of you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. Lily chimed in, her excitement uncontainable. "Does this mean I get to tell everyone my brother's an astronaut?" Lucas laughed, ruffling her hair. "You bet." The year leading up to Lucas's departure was a whirlwind of preparations and farewells. We celebrated every moment, big and small. cherishing the time we had together. On the day he left, we stood at the launch site, watching as he boarded the spacecraft that would take him on the journey of a lifetime. As the countdown began, Ethan squeezed my hand. "He's going to do amazing things," he said, his voice steady. "I know," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "But I'm going to miss him every day." When the rocket lifted off, soaring into the sky, I felt a mix of pride and longing that I couldn't put into words. Lucas was chasing his dreams, and while it hurt to see him go, I knew he was exactly where he was meant to be. In the years that followed, our family continued to grow and evolve. Lily's art gained recognition far beyond our little town, and she eventually opened her own studio, becoming a beacon of creativity in the community. Ethan and I found joy in every moment, whether it was visiting Lily's gallery openings or catching glimpses of Lucas on televised broadcasts from space. One evening, as we sat together watching the stars, Ethan took my hand. "Anna," he said softly, "do you ever think about how far we've come?" I nodded, my gaze fixed on the sky. "All the time, and I wouldn't change a thing." He smiled, his eyes filled with love. "Neither would I. You've made my life extraordinary." I leaned into him, the warmth of his embrace grounding me. "And you've made mine complete." As the stars twinkled above us, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Life had been anything but easy, but it had brought us to this moment. A life filled with love, resilience, and endless possibilities. The years continued to unfold like chapters in a cherished book, each one filled with new adventures and challenges. Lucas's journey as an astronaut became a source of pride not just for our family, but for our entire community. Whenever news of his Mars mission was broadcast, neighbors and friends would gather at our house, cheering him on as if he were a local hero, which, in many ways, he was. Meanwhile, Lily's artistic career flourished. Her work was featured in international galleries, and her vibrant, emotive style captured hearts everywhere. She often joked that her success stemmed from the encouragement she received as a child when we let her turn our walls into her personal canvas. Despite the excitement and accomplishments surrounding us, Ethan and I found joy in the quiet moments of our shared life. One spring morning, while tending to the garden we'd started together, Ethan looked up from planting a row of tomatoes and said, "Anna, I've been thinking." I smiled, brushing dirt from my hands. "That's always a good thing. What's on your mind?" He stood, brushing off his knees, and looked at me with a warmth that never failed to make my heart skip. "We've built this incredible life together, but there's still one thing I'd love to do." "And what's that?" I asked, curious. "I want to start a foundation," he said. "Something to help families like ours, people who've been through tough times and need a fresh start." The idea was beautiful, and it resonated deeply. "That's a wonderful idea, Ethan. Let's do it." Over the next few months, we poured our energy into creating the foundation. Named Second Chances, it aimed to provide resources, counseling, and support to individuals and families rebuilding their lives after hardship. It was deeply personal to both of us, a way to honor the journey we had traveled together. Launching the foundation brought a new sense of purpose to our lives. We met countless people who reminded us of where we had once been, broken, searching for hope. Helping them find their way felt like completing a circle, turning our pain into something meaningful. One afternoon, as we were preparing for a charity event, Lily walked into the room holding her phone, a wide grin on her face. "Mom, Dad, you're not going to believe this," she said, her excitement bubbling over. "What is it?" Ethan asked, his curiosity piqued. "I just got off the phone with Lucas. He said the Mars mission has been extended and he's going to be part of the team setting up the first permanent habitat on the planet." My breath caught and Ethan's smile widened. "That's incredible," he exclaimed. "It is," I agreed, though my heart ached at the thought of Lucas being even farther from home for so long. He's doing what he's meant to do. And the day Lucas officially became part of the Mars colony was one of mixed emotions. Watching him address the world from the Red Planet during a live broadcast filled me with pride and awe. His voice was steady, his eyes filled with determination, as he spoke about the mission's importance and the hope it brought for humanity's future. Later that evening, Ethan and I sat on the porch, looking up at the night sky. "It's strange, isn't it?" I said softly. "Knowing our son is out there, on another planet." Ethan wrapped an arm around me. "It's more than strange. It's extraordinary. And it's a testament to everything you've done, Anna. You raised him to dream big." I smiled, leaning into him. We raised him. Together. As time passed, our family remained close despite the distance. Lucas sent regular messages from Mars, sharing his experiences and even joking about how his childhood science experiments had prepared him for this. Lily, always the creative one, began incorporating elements of Lucas's journey into her art, creating pieces that celebrated exploration and resilience. One evening, during one of Lucas's rare live calls, he said something that stayed with me. "Mom, Dad, everything I've done, everything I've achieved, it all started with the love and strength you gave me. Thank you for believing in me." Tears filled my eyes as Ethan and I exchanged a look. "We'll always believe in you, Lucas," I said, my voice steady despite the lump in my throat. The years rolled on, and life continued to surprise us. Ethan and I celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary, surrounded by family and friends. Lily had become a renowned artist, and Lucas's work on Mars was hailed as one of humanity's greatest achievements. Despite their busy lives, they both made time to be with us, filling our home with laughter and love. One quiet evening, as Ethan and I sat by the fire, reminiscing about the life we'd built, he turned to me with a soft smile. "Anna, do you remember when we first met?" I chuckled. "How could I forget? You were the kind bookstore volunteer who saved me from a very boring afternoon." He laughed, his eyes twinkling. "And you were the woman who changed my life in ways I never imagined." As we sat there hand in hand, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. Our journey had been anything but ordinary, but it had been ours, a story of love, resilience, and the unshakable belief that even in the darkest moments, there is always hope. The years drifted by like a gentle tide, bringing with them the ebb and flow of new joys and challenges. Lucas, now a celebrated pioneer of humanity's Mars colonization efforts, remained as grounded as ever. His messages from the Red Planet became a treasured ritual for us. Though the physical distance was vast, his warmth and humor made him feel as close as the next room. Meanwhile, Lily's art continued to inspire the world. Her latest project, a series of immersive installations blending her vibrant artistry with Lucas's stunning imagery of Mars, captivated audiences everywhere. The exhibit, titled Bridging Worlds, was a celebration of human connection across impossible distances. It was also a personal tribute to the bond between her and her brother. One quiet evening, as Ethan and I sat by the window watching a summer storm roll in, he turned to me with a pensive look. "Anna," he began, "have you ever wondered what life would have been like if things had gone differently? If we hadn't met? Or if your story had taken another path?" I took a deep breath, his question pulling me into the depths of memory. "I've thought about it," I admitted. "But every time I do, I realize that no matter how much pain and uncertainty I faced back then, it led me here. To you. To our family. I wouldn't change a thing." He smiled, his hand finding mine. "Neither would I. You've been my greatest gift, Anna." A few weeks later, the world was abuzz with excitement over Lucas's latest milestone. The Mars mission team had successfully created a sustainable habitat, allowing the first permanent residents to thrive. Lucas's name was etched in history as one of the key contributors to this monumental achievement. That evening, As Ethan and I watched the televised ceremony honoring Lucas and his team, my heart swelled with pride. When it was Lucas's turn to speak, his words left us both misty-eyed. "This mission was never just about science," he said, standing in the glowing Martian habitat. "It was about hope. It was about proving that no matter how far we go, we carry the love and lessons of those who came before us. To my family, who taught me to dream big and never give up, thank you. This is as much your achievement as it is mine." I pressed my hand to my chest, tears spilling over as Ethan wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "Our son," he whispered, his voice filled with wonder. "He's something else." As life slowed down in our twilight years, Ethan and I found joy in the little things. Quiet mornings with coffee on the porch, walks through the garden, and visits from Lily, who never failed to bring a splash of vibrant energy into our home. One evening, as we sat by the fireplace, Lily surprised us with a gift. It was a beautifully framed portrait she had painted, capturing the essence of our family through the years. Lucas in his astronaut suit standing tall and proud, Lily with her paintbrush vibrant and full of life, Ethan and me side by side, weathered by time but glowing with love. "It's us," Lily said softly, her voice tinged with emotion. "I wanted to capture everything you've built, everything you've given us." I touched the edge of the frame, tears welling in my eyes. "It's beautiful, Lily." "Thank you." Ethan nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "You've captured our story perfectly." As the years wore on, our world grew quieter, but no less fulfilling. Visits from Lucas, who occasionally returned to Earth, and Lily, who made it a point to check on us regularly, became the highlights of our days. Ethan and I often found ourselves reminiscing, marveling at the journey we had shared. One day, as the sun set on a crisp autumn evening, Ethan held my hand and whispered, "Anna, if I had one more lifetime, I'd spend it with you all over again." I smiled, my heart full, and I'd choose you every time. That night, as I lay beside him, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the life we had lived. It wasn't perfect, but it had been rich, meaningful, and filled with love. When Ethan passed away peacefully in his sleep a few months later, I was heartbroken but also deeply grateful. He had given me a life filled with joy, laughter, and unwavering support. Surrounded by family, I felt his presence in every memory we had created together. Lily and Lucas were my greatest sources of comfort in those days. Lucas, who had returned to Earth for a short leave, held my hand as I stood by Ethan's resting place. "Mom," he said softly, "Dad would want us to celebrate his life, not just mourn his passing." Lily nodded, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "He left us so much love. It's our job to carry it forward." And so we did. In the months that followed, I found strength in our family, and in the foundation Ethan and I had created. Second chances continued to thrive, helping countless families find hope and healing. The years later, as I sat in the garden Ethan and I had once tended together, I found myself reflecting on everything we had built, our family, our love, and the legacy we had left behind. Lily sat beside me, her sketchbook in hand, while Lucas, who had retired from his Mars mission, shared stories of his time on the Red Planet. Looking at them, I felt a deep sense of peace. My life had been a tapestry of challenges and triumphs, woven together by love and resilience. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the garden in a golden glow, I whispered to myself, "We did it, Ethan. We made something extraordinary.